So today we're going to tackle the granddaddy of them all, the theory of everything. I didn't go out searching for the theory of everything, but I more probed about what the structure of a theory of everything would look like. I was going to make a video on the paradoxes part 2 to go a little more in depth than that, but this is pretty much the same idea, I just formalized it better, and we will visit some of those other paradoxes a little later on here using this new formalization, so fancy word. First of all, for a theory of everything to work, it needs to have 3 conditions. It needs to self-describe. It needs to describe itself. It has to explain its own existence. It can't be a rule handed down from nowhere. It has to be a logically necessity that proves why it must be there. 2, it has to be scale invariance. It has to work for a cell, to an atom, to you, to a galaxy, to the universe, from the big to the small. 3, it has to have the inside-outside problem. It has to explain how we can be inside the system, experiencing the flux, while simultaneously being able to conceptualize the outside logic of that system itself. So what would a theory of everything look like? If you ask a scientist for a TOE, they're probably looking for a beautiful set of equations. But it feels like they're just playing an endless game, right? They're trying to combine some ideas here and there, but they're constantly adding more and more new ones. It's kind of like entropy, right? They compress an idea here or there, but the overall trend is just getting more and more details. So which is it? Is it one simple equation they're looking for, or countless equations to describe everything? If you ask a philosopher, their goal is to find the deeper truth, like ignore the details. So what is that? Like just a single symbol? Is that infinity? Is that 1? Who knows? What are they looking for? A single word? The problem is, if you do this, if you give it an infinite symbol or word, you lose structure. You can't do anything with infinity. You can't add to it, you can't divide it, you can't do anything. It's meaningless by itself. And then you have things like simulation theory. They say the universe is nothing, right? But like infinity, 0 has no structure. Or religion, they say everything is 1. Is it just 1 once again? No structure, no room to move. Our universe is nothing, everything, and 1. But on their own, all these things are meaningless. Now you may argue, there's more to the universe than these, but what, 2, 3, 4, and 5? Well, they're all just extensions of 1. But a theory of everything must contain all of these. The reason, simple, because all of them seem to exist in our universe. So how do we combine them in a way that creates structure? So I'm going to show you this way. This isn't the way I figured it out, but for me, it's the most intuitive way to show you. And that's through language. And this isn't just a neat trick either, right? Like a true theory of everything must explain language itself, because language is a part of the universe. And how are we going to talk about the theory of everything without language? So let's look at this sentence, right? The universe is. Well, what is it? Scientists, once again, will say, this is energy, this is information, this is entropy, but they're all searching for one idea. In that fact, they're already admitting that at some level, all these words are the same. For instance, information theory and entropy. Sure, they're different fields of study, but if you dig deep enough, on some level, they're combined. Just like Maxwell's combined electricity and magnetism, right? They're searching for that one word, and they just keep finding more and more. But before we look for that last word, let's probe the beginning of this sentence. The universe. Now, we can make this equal to any of these. The equation stays the same, just a bit of rearranging, but for intuition, we're going to call it 1. Okay? Why? Because if it's just infinity, once again, there's no structure, and 0, there's no structure. 1 has structure compared to both of them. Well, that's easy, right? That's equivalence. And in math, that's just your equal sign. Now we're already starting to see the formula or the equation coming together. So now what goes here? Well, once again, if we just pick one thing, like energy or time or whatever you pick, or God, there's no structure. You can't describe the structure using one word, because the moment you do, you lose the detail. It's like saying a car is a car. It doesn't tell you how the engine works. This side equation has to create structure. It has to encapsulate both nothing and everything. In fact, we already did this. We have thousands of words for all, but here's the thing. The more words we use to describe it, the more they lose their individual meaning. They start to become a continuum. Think about it. The more words you add to the pile, the less any single word can have privilege over another. It's no different than when we realize there's no center to the physical universe, right? There is no privileged location. Every point is central as any other. It's the same with truth. There's no privileged word, energy, math, God. They're all just coordinate systems. And when you stop trying to pick one and look at the entire spectrum, that's when you start to create structure. So what does the structure look like? Well, it looks like this. Oh. And there's your equation. Now I know what you're thinking. At first you're looking at this and thinking this is some voodoo, hippy-dippy wordplay. It doesn't really have any bearing on the world. But if you actually study this equation at length, you'll notice something undeniable. First of all, it satisfies all our conditions. It encompasses everything. There it is. It encompasses nothing simultaneously. It provides the universe with a concrete invariant structure. And most importantly, it fits every single field of knowledge we have. From the way a cell maintains its boundary, to the way the market sets a price. This isn't just a feeling, it's a structural blueprint of how anything becomes a thing in the first place. It even gives clues as to how we can define life, but we'll say that for a little later on. So let me put the equation back down here so we can see it better. And let's first look at how this equation fits our three conditions for a TOE. Self-correction, description, how does it explain its own existence? Well, look at the one. That is the boundary. The equation shows that for nothing and everything, to even be concepts at all, they require a point of reference. That's the one to relate it to. The extreme force a center into existence. The equation exists because the vacuum of the infinite cannot coexist without a boundary. It's a logical necessity. Scale invariance. Does it work on every level? Well, look at a galaxy, right? There's my galaxy. Beautiful. It's single. It's a one thing. We've named it a galaxy. But it's billions of stars, which make up trillions of atoms, which make it countless fundamental particles. All that complexity, that is this, the infinity, right? But the galaxy holds a single stable gravitational identity against the void, the nothing, and has structure, the one. Look at an atom. It's a single, one stable unit holding a quantum cloud of probability against the empty space around it. And finally, even you, a person, you are a single one, a consistent identity, filtering out an infinite stream of sensory data, trillions of cellular processes every second. Whether you zoom in to the particle or out to the cosmos, the math of the one holding all together never changes. What about our third condition, the inside-outside problem? Well, this one's all about perspective, right? Think of it like this. The brackets here are the total view. It's the map of the whole territory. Well, everything is already balanced. But the one, the equal sign, is the local view. It explains how we can be inside the flux, experiencing the movement between the numbers, while still being able to write down the outside logic. That governs it. It bridges the coordinates where you are to the system, what the universe is. It's the difference between being a point on a line and understanding the geometry of the line itself. We have talked about this idea in a few of my earlier videos, and I've given it a few names. I've called it bounded and unbounded infinities, and outside and inside the infinite set. Hell, you could even say it's God's view, but this isn't some mystical thing. This is just an ability we have, but that's for another time. So why do we have these two arrows here that go in both directions? Why can't we just have everything without the nothing? Because every description you put into this system has a direction. You cannot move forward to one extreme without implicitly moving away from the other. It's a trade-off of information. Let's look at our universe let's take the whole universe, for example, right? In one direction, we're moving from zero space-time, the Big Bang, towards infinite space-time, the heat death. But as space-time grows, the density of the universe falls towards zero. It goes in the opposite direction. They are the same event viewed from two different sides of the arrow. The same idea goes for the quantum scale, right? In one direction, you have the wave function. This is the state of infinite potential. There's your infinite. It's everything happening at once, spread out across space. But as long as the system stays in that infinite state, its physical reality, its location in our one world is effectively zero. It doesn't exist as a single point yet. But the moment we measure it, we force the arrow to move. When we observe, we collapse that infinite thing into a particle. We've gained identity, the particle, but we've gained identity, and that's the particle. But we've traded away the infinite potential, the wave. So we're flipping from one side to the other. Just like the universe is expanding and cooling, you cannot have the particle without losing the wave. The measurement problem isn't a mystery of physics, it's a requirement of the structure. To have the one, to have the fact that you can't hold on to, you have to move away from the infinite. The duality isn't a glitch, it's the cost of entry to reality. And this whole idea works for just everyday living as well, right? Think of law and order if you want. Okay, you can have infinite law and order, but what are you giving up? You're giving up freedom. See, there's always a counter word that makes the arrow go in either direction. This idea here has come up throughout our history, right? Every time we find a concept, we've created a direction. And logic forces us to search for the opposite of that direction. Such as we found 1, then we found 0, then we found infinity, and then we found negative infinity. In physics, we found the wave, then we found the particle, and now we have many worlds. It's a never-ending cycle. We found matter, then we searched for antimatter. We found electrons, now we found a positron. We are trapped in a binary loop because the equation requires the balance. Within the one, within our reality, you find more zeros and more infinities. We create substructures within the structure. Zero becomes a boundary between identities. But this is a theory of everything, right? So it needs to talk about way more than just physics. It needs to encompass everything. But it does. Look at math, right? So here you have the infinite number line. I had to draw more for you to keep you guys involved more. And between each integer, there's another infinity, right? So you have the whole thing, the one over here, and then you have the infinite thing in between. Same goes with religion, right? We keep compacting everything into one God. Even a cell, here's my cell for you. It maintains a boundary around an infinite amount of molecule interactions while existing in an environment of zero. That's not the same. Every field that tries to describe totality hits the same structure. Not because they're copying each other, but because comprehension itself requires this form. We've come across this structure of the TOE over and over again, but we just keep arguing over the terminology. When you adopt this idea about structure for the theory of everything. Even, the Riemann hypothesis starts to make a little more sense, right? We count the primes on this side in reality, and they're spontaneous, they're all over the place, and they go on forever. There's no pattern or whatever. But we also study it from this side, and that's the complex side. And that side is like the bounded infinity. And when we're adding those waves, we're taking the waves of the totality of everything. And we're combining these two informations together to get the prime numbers. Unfortunately, I believe that there may not be able to prove the Riemann hypothesis, because you can't combine these two. Well, you can combine the two infinities, but you lose the information on how you do it because they're infinitely apart. You can only zoom in. If you zoom out far enough to see the bounded infinity, you lose all the detail, all the numbers inside there. So let's examine some more paradoxes under this new framework, right? We'll start with the ship of Theseus. I still can't say his name after all this time. Just to give you a more, it's very intuitive to understand it, right? The whole idea of this takes place inside this set. You don't experience a boundary. Think about the ship. When did it become a ship? When we designed it, when we named it, when it went on its maiden voyage. The truth is, it never was one. We impose that identity onto it. Once you realize that, the paradox isn't even a paradox anymore. It's just the flux of the universe. This is where quantum field theory is headed, right? That particles aren't even really things. They're just fluxes in the field. We just have to now embrace that idea into our day-to-day life. There is a reason for that, but once again, that's for later on. So let's analyze some more modern paradoxes, right? So let's forgo all the fancy words that these people use and simplify it as much as possible. You have the big one, or even this bounded infinity, the big one, the universe. And you have the little one right here, one apple or whatever you want to use. Let's just use that terminology to describe more modern paradoxes. Every field of knowledge has a paradox at the end, and that paradox appears when you try to combine the big one and the little one. Set theory, we ask, is the set of all sets that don't contain themselves inside the infinite set or outside itself. It's the little one trying to define the big one. And that logic just snaps. The whole two problems are the same. The little program can't fully calculate the entire program. I don't understand even how these are that complicated. In completeness theory, right? Any system, the little one, there are truths the system can't prove. You have to step out to the big one to see the truth. But when you need a bigger one to describe that, you can't. You can't. All these paradoxes are just what happens when we try to force the big one and the little one together. It's the map trying to be the territory itself. It's the self-reference problem in its simplest terms. Think about it, even in math, we have the one, right? It's the smallest thing and it's the biggest thing and everything in between. So if this equation is so obvious, why don't we have it as our theory of everything? Well, it seems to be just ego. To have a theory of everything, we all have to pick a word for the one. But we are so attached to our coordinate systems and our fields of knowledge that we refuse to concede. The scientists want energy, the philosophers want being, the spiritual person wants God. But under this framework, all of them are equally as valid, just like there's no center to the universe, but they're all just valid. A person calling it God is describing the same structure as a physicist describing energy. The disagreement is about vocabulary, not reality. We have to realize that truth isn't a word, it's an invariant structure that remains when all the words are stripped away. We can argue over the details all day long, but to say your truth is deeper than someone else's is a lie. This structure shows that. So to sum up, here, I'll draw my book. There's my book of everything, right? To sum up, in order to have a book called The Theory of Everything, We can't take the scientific route of infinite detail. No book can contain infinite detail. We can't have a book that says nothing, because it says nothing. So what are we left with? Well, we're left with one book. But why this equation? Why is this structure necessary? I'll go into that in another video. Thanks for watching.